Hi! So I finally figured out how to make videos on my computer, so maybe I'll keep updating my stories. My phone's camera is really bad, so I've really fallen off that. I haven't been canning as much as last year because I've been busier and it's hard to do the bulk canning, but I have been fermenting a little bit, so I wanted to share that. So we've been growing a few different things, and today we're making hot sauce. Fermented hot sauce, so it's full of probiotics and good bacteria. Here's one that we're using dried cayenne peppers from last year, ancho chilies from the store, little apple from the neighbor for sweetness, red onion, garlic, and then I threw in a couple of beet stems, hopefully to add some redness to it and to quicken the fermentation, because dried chilies won't ferment quite as well as not dried chilies, fresh chilies. We're gonna make another different hot sauce in this one. And so for that, collected a few things. We have a chili from Jess, Jake's sister. She grew it with our hydroponic garden. Throw that in. And then a bunch of our dried cayenne. And just cutting off the stems, maybe the tips, and kind of cutting them in half. The smaller that they're cut up, I guess, the quicker the fermentation will happen. Okay, so we've got a bunch of peppers chopped up, and we'll throw those in. When they rehydrate, they'll take up a little more room, and the idea is we're filling up the jar about a third of the way full with the peppers. Hopefully these ancho chilies aren't super old. I can't even remember when we got them. One of these bags you get from the supermarket. Alright, so after the peppers, I'm going to throw in a little apple into this one too, because it'd be nice for the sweetness. If I had carrots, I would throw in carrots. I don't have any right now. I actually did try pulling up some carrots from the garden that I'd let go to flower. The flowers are really pretty, maybe I'll bring those in. But they're just like these woody, gross carrots. So anyway, we're not adding those. We'll add some apple. Ideally, you're not using apples with any bruising, I think, or rot, because you could get mold and whatnot. These are shallots, or small onions. Honestly, I still don't really know the difference. I'll just chop these up a bit. Okay. The onions make me really sad. They go in. Or shallots, I guess. So we're filling up. Next is garlic. We grew a lot of garlic this year, so this is from our garden. I bought the garlic originally from the Dungeness farm that I saw at the Ballard Farmers Market in Seattle. And we had Assylian red, or sorry, not Assylian. We had Spanish Roja, Siberian red, and we also got some elephant garlic from Nash's, and I haven't done the best job remembering what's what. But anyway, we're going to put a lot of garlic in this. So for the garlic, I just smash them, and maybe cut off the end. With these, you don't have to chop them up. Okay, throwing in the garlic. So finally, I gathered a bunch of nasturtium flowers from the garden. So I'm just gonna give these a quick rinse. I don't think there's any bugs in them, but they're super yummy and spicy. And I think they'll add a nice flavor, and they're also gonna hopefully help with the color. But I'm gonna throw in some beet stems to make sure it's a nice red color too. These are beet stems from our garden. I hope that they blend well, we'll see, but they'll definitely make the color really nice. This is all kind of an experiment. I've never done this before. We've made hot sauce, but never fermented hot sauce. Oh, again, for flavor and color, some paprika. I don't even measure. And then the last thing we add is the brine. So I made this ahead of time. It's just a mixture of water and salt. You try to use non-chlorinated water because chlorine kills fermentation. There's a little bit of chlorine in our water, but I haven't had any problem with it killing fermentation. So I'll try to sometimes boil it first, but it's been fine. So we fill up our bottles, hopefully I have enough. There's a ratio of salt to water that you want. We're just filling up to where everything's covered. And you want to make sure, I did heat up the water a little bit to get the salt to dissolve, and you want to make sure it's not hot. Okay. I'm just going to add. Probably I didn't need to do that, but anyway. Finally, you're going to add some weights to keep it all. These weights a while back because I've been fermenting. Before, you can just use like a plastic bag filled with water, but these weights are pretty sweet. Keep everything submerged. So now we just, if you had some fancy fermentation caps that let air out, that's awesome, but I'll just do, sometimes I do a cloth or paper towel and then I put a ring on it, or do kind of like this. Or I go ahead and put the regular caps on them and I just burp them every day. So you keep an eye on them and they should be kind of bubbling, and it's going to be harder to tell with this one. I wish I had another clear one. But they'll start bubbling and it'll get kind of opaque and cloudy, and that shows you that lactofermentation is happening. So hopefully 7 days, but since it's dried peppers, it might be more like a month, which is fine. And then the next step, we'll return for that, but basically you strain out the brine, and then you add all the solids to a blender, and you slowly add brine and blend until you get a good hot sauce consistency, and you add a little bit of apple cider vinegar at that point too. I'm also going to add, for flavor, some sun-dried tomatoes. I'm not adding those now because they have the olive oil. I didn't know how that would do with fermentation, so I was just going to wait till later to add them. And I guess all that will do is, it'll add flavor, but the olive oil won't last as long as the hot sauce without the olive oil, so we'll just have to eat that hot sauce quickly, which I don't think will be a problem. So yeah, that's fermentation of hot sauce. Just taking one more look at this because it's just so pretty. I think the peppers will rehydrate and push up, and this might go a little crazy because of the beet stems. I guess beets really ferment fast, so it might spill over, and that's okay as long as you keep everything submerged before the water line. So sometimes you have to add a little bit, and you don't want to mess up your salt to water ratio a bunch, so you have to consider that. Maybe add a teensy bit more salt if needed. But yeah, this is gonna be, I'm gonna label it with the date, going to put it somewhere where if it does bubble over, I can catch that water. And you want it in kind of, I think, like a darkish place. I'm not sure if that matters, but I usually put it all up in my cupboard.